How's everyone doing? Good? We had a great Sunday yesterday. We opened with the charity 5K. How many of you actually went on that? Okay, and just to balance out the healthy factor, we also had some food trucks in the evening, open bar down at the gallery in San Francisco. We're really excited about the symposium. I'm really happy to see all of you here. We're here to talk about engagement. If you've been following Liferay for a long time, you know that we come from a history of portals, and you know that over the last 5 to 10 years, technology has actually changed quite a bit, and the conversation has changed. The kinds of things that we want to do with IT is not what we were doing back in 2004 when Liferay started, and certainly not even 2009. And things are changing so quickly. But I want to take this back to how we got here and see and show you that maybe what we're trying to do with technology is not so different from what we've tried to do all along. I'm going to start with this quote from a Gartner analyst who predicted that the chief marketing officer is going to be spending more on IT by 2017 than the CIO. And I'm not here to really dispute, refute, or to support this prediction, but I thought it was really interesting. And I thought about it for a long time. I said, well, I wonder why this is the case. And, James and I were trying to kind of show how with mobile technology today, business is happening no matter where you are, no matter what time of day it is, and no matter what your environment is. And some people will say that that's really disruptive. People will say that it's invasive. But if you think about it, it's not so different from where we came from if we go back, let's say, 100 years. And back when, before the development of modern cities and all that, we used to live more or less in small towns and villages, right? And you might be walking down the high street of your local town, and you might run into people you know. You might be on your way to go run an errand, but suddenly the local baker is going to, be going down your path, and then he might stop you and say, hey, how's it going? Didn't get to see you in the morning. We've got we got a fresh shipment of bread in from the factory this morning, so why don't you stop on by later today, right? Or you might run into your local tailor, and he might ask after your children, and that sort of thing. And I wanted to give you this example of this man, Mariano Rubinacci. He has been in the business of tailoring fine suits for many generations. His great-grandfather actually was a trader in the silk and wool business, and he was so successful that he was able to open the shop in Naples and basically showcase the fine fabrics that he had acquired from around the world. And so Mariano Rubinacci is currently spearheading this business, and he basically represents the pinnacle of the art of fine tailoring. When you visit him in his shop, first of all, he probably knows you by name because he still has a very intimate relationship with his customers. But if you're a first-time customer like this man, he's going to actually take all of your measurements. He's going to take everything from the shoulders to your arm length to your waist and down to your pant length. And then they're going to embark on a 7-week process of basically hand-stitching, hand-making this very fine, custom-made Italian suit. And this was the way that fine suits and clothes were made in general for many, many generations until the advent of certain major technologies that really shifted the way that we think about how we purchase clothing. So let's take a look at some of those things. Right around the middle of the 19th century, you had, first of all, the development of the steam-powered locomotive. And what this really did was to change our concept of distance from being based in these towns and villages to now thinking about, well, I could actually leave the place where I grew up and go to these bigger cities that were forming and find a new start, find a new job, maybe try something completely different than what my parents used to do. Around the same time, you also had the development of factories. You had the mobility of people, again, moving to urban centers, and you had the development of technology like the sewing machine. So now the things that were made by hand, the things that were made locally, were being made in a factory that was far off and where your customers might also have been far away from where you're actually making the clothes. We also had, around this time, the development of the mail order catalog. And this shows you one sample of that from the turn of the century, the 20th century. Montgomery Ward was one of the pioneers. And of course, this was made possible by the development of the printing press. And later on, the development of photography meant that you could show the photos of the latest fashions and so forth. And so you can see how, even as we're experiencing today, technology really started to change the relationship that companies had with their customers. It went from being very individual and personalized to being a little bit more mass market. And how did these companies actually perfect this? Well, one of the things that they did was address a big problem, which was that depending on which catalog you were shopping from, a size smaller, a medium, or a large would fit differently from the clothes that you got from the other catalog. And so I call this the sort of big first big data experiment in the fashion industry. Back in 1950, the Mail Order Catalog Companies of America Consortium commissioned this study to basically standardize the most frequent measurements of taken from a group of 10,000 women that were shopping with them. And they were basically able to find the most frequent occurrences of different combinations of sizings so that they can now standardize on what we know today as the size 38, the size 40 that we see when we go to a standard, even shopping department store. So all of us here who have ever bought a suit probably know that, very far removed from the experience of people who visit tailors like Mr. Rubinacci, we're actually just buying off the rack, pre-made, pre-measured, and you just got to find your size and then have it tailored afterwards. So I also wanted to think about how the development of these concepts have mapped with technology after 1950. So one interesting thing that I found was that the use of the term marketing actually rose in prominence from around the time that we're talking about, the 1900s, and then post-1950, it really took off. And I wanted to plot this development against some of the different mass media that also developed over that time period. So again, we start with the sort of one-on-one interactions that you had on the high street in your local independent shops. And then you had the development of print technology, which allowed you to reach an audience beyond just your neighborhood to an entire city. And then, of course, with the advent of radio and television, this meant that the distances you could reach became national and nationwide. And so by the time we hit the 1990s and the internet was starting to really come into the cultural conversation, it was very natural for most companies and most individuals to think that this was yet another mass media that was extending along the lines of radio and television. And one of the features of mass media has been this aspect that as the reach gets farther and farther, the level of personal detail gets lower and lower. So necessarily, when you're advertising on television, you have to start thinking about demographics. You have to start putting people into buckets and say, people in the IT industry between the ages of 30 and 39 are going to behave a certain way. Newlywed couples between the ages of 20 and 25 are going to have a certain spending allowance and so forth. And so around this time, you saw this misconception play itself out in some of the most noteworthy and now notorious old and new media marriages. I don't know if you remember, but AOL Time Warner was a big deal at the time. And now it's hardly part of the technological radar today in 2013. MSNBC, a marriage between Microsoft and one of the old media stalwarts, NBC Universal. Again, now this partnership has also dissolved. And basically what people didn't understand about the internet was that as a mass medium, it was actually fundamentally different from everything that had come before it. One of the most obvious aspects that we know today in 2013 is that the internet is personal. All of us probably have some form of personal account and presence on the internet, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, or a blog or a website. The internet also has infinite reach. One of the things that we learned over the last 5 years is that there's no such thing as storefront space on the internet. Every mobile device, every computer screen is a personal storefront for the person engaging with your brand. The internet is also interactive. Dell Computers was one of the first companies to take advantage of this fact. The fact that even though their assembly plant and their factory was in Texas, that people from all over the country could immediately tell Dell, this is exactly what I want, and expect that within 2 to 3 weeks they would get the custom-built computer at their doorstep. And finally, the internet has been immediate. So when you go on to Amazon.com and you start browsing for a vacuum cleaner or for a new hi-fi stereo, they're going to immediately start showing you other products that people who have browsed those items have gone on to purchase or to look at. This is a selection of CDs that have been presented to me when I was shopping on Amazon.com. And so if we look back on the development of mass media, let's actually put the internet on proper perspective. It's the first mass medium that can actually be infinitely mass market in its reach, but ultimately personal in the way that it understands your unique preferences. And this was true, I think, as early as 2008, 2009, maybe even before then. And within the last 3 to 5 years, the conversation has changed again. I don't know if you have seen this photo from the inauguration of the latest Pope, Francis, in the Vatican City. Just the difference between the inauguration from 8 years ago to this year, and the proliferation and the ubiquity of mobile devices. And of course, you've heard of all of the different cloud technologies that also make it possible for technology to follow us everywhere and at any time that we want to engage with the company. And so let's draw this picture one more time and include mobile and cloud technology, and we can see just how far the potential is for companies to understand, interact with, and ultimately engage with their customers, their employees, and their partners. So when we turn back to the question from the Gartner analyst, why will the chief marketing officer spend more on IT than the CIO? I believe it's because this thing called the internet and mobile and cloud technology suddenly makes it possible for you to understand every person's personal preferences, their desires, their frustrations, their needs, no matter where they are, no matter what time of day it is, no matter what the context is. In other words, when we take the example from our friend Mr. Rubinacci, we have all of the advantages of having a finely tailored custom fit suit and all of the accessibility and the price advantages of off-the-rack clothing. So where does that take us with portal technology? We're here at a Liferay conference. I hope you're here to learn about portals and what you can do with Liferay to reach your customers, but what does it mean for us? Well, I think we've also gone through this transition from understanding people in terms of segments and markets to getting more and more personal and interactive. So we started out with your basic portal, Cirsa 2000, where the value proposition was around having single sign-on, having secure authentication, and having the right roles to get the person logging in connected to important systems. It probably looks something like this. You would have your requisite weather portlet and a message from the CEO. But then you would have some dumb links into some systems on the back end that you would have to click into in order to get access to those systems. And believe it or not, I still have conversations with customers today where this is what they're actually using for their portal. It really was about accessing systems of record and that access being mediated. In this diagram, what's important is not the person on the left side, but it's all of this stuff on the right side. It was protecting your documents and your assets. It was about making sure that nobody compromised your invoicing systems, your financial records, and all of these things. So think of it as a library, and you wanted to make sure that the people checking out the books would return the books, and they wouldn't have access to the sensitive collections. Well, over time, portal technology has evolved as well, and we started to develop the idea of personalization. Except we did this in the same way that marketers do it with market segments. We said, okay, we're going to assume that if you're a manager in this company, your needs are going to be pretty similar to all of the other managers in our company. And if you're a frontline employee, that's going to be more or less the same for you as well. And we called this personalization, except there was nothing really that personal about it. This whole bucketization of people into these groups was really a stopgap until we could get more sophisticated in the ways that we could understand what our different audiences needed. The other thing I would point out about this stage of portal development is that it was mainly behind the firewall. So these are different groups of employees, internal audiences that are interacting with these systems. So what was the next stage of the evolution? Well, as portals got more sophisticated, they added some interactive technologies. We added things like publishing, collaboration, and social. And if you followed Liferay, you know that this was a strong part of our messaging around the 2006 to 2009 era. And so what could you now do with these new capabilities? You could build all kinds of sites, and now we were actually outside of the firewall, and we were engaging with different audiences, whether it was public website visitors, employees, or partners of the company. We built things like self-service portals. We built social networks. We built internal and external social collaboration sites. But again, the focus was really on these single audiences, and these were really silos of interaction. And one of the examples we've been talking about in Liferay internally a lot is the idea of your employee customer. So if you're a telecommunications company, chances are that 80% of your employees are going to get some kind of a special discount on using your mobile devices and your mobile plans. And so there's a customer aspect to that employee, but they've also got the internal employee aspect. And do we have a knowledge or a sense of that employee's relationship to the company, not only as an employee and not only as a customer, but also this hybrid relationship in between? The reality today is that the kinds of relationships that we're having cross all of these barriers, and the conversations that people are having are both within these groups and across these groups. You have companies like Cisco who tell us that the help that customers give each other on figuring out how to fix routers is more accurate than the official documentation that's generated internally. We have the partner ecosystem to Liferay is very important, and I'm sure that our partners are talking to each other saying, are we getting the most out of our investment in the Liferay community? What are you guys seeing in the market? They're actually having those conversations face-to-face and one-on-one, and we have no idea what they're saying in those conversations. You have, of course, employees who are using Glassdoor to rate and comment on companies and approving or disapproving of the CEOs. I've seen this for Liferay as well, and I'm thankful that at least the people who have been up there approve of me for now. But this is the open, collaborative society that we live in today. And we can either fight it or we can support it and use technology to understand what these conversations are about and how we can respond to them. The new portals of the future are also about crossing contexts. So it's not just about online, but what if you could actually be a company that understood what the user needed based on whatever the interaction was. So an example is I'm a frequent flyer on United, and it frustrates me to no end that I might be looking for how I can change an upcoming flight on United.com. If I can't figure it out, I try to use the online help and can't find the answers, I'll pick up the phone. Well, when I pick up the phone, I need to punch in my frequent flyer number or use the voice recognition, which doesn't work. And then I end up pressing 0 like 5 times to get to the agent. And then when I finally get to the agent, the first thing they ask me is, how can I help you? Well, if you had been paying attention to what I've been doing on your website for the last 30 minutes, you'd know exactly how you could help me. And we could accelerate the conversation a little bit. Finally, the portals of the future are really going to be about not just delivering information when it's requested, but delivering the right information in the right context when you need it. So you're a Liferay partner and you're meeting with a prospect and you need to close a deal and you're looking for our document that details the different service level agreements that we have in our subscription. Yeah, you can search for it on liferay.com, but what if, based on your location, your calendar, and the fact that we knew that you were going to be on site, we actually presented you the most relevant and helpful documents that were determined by social ratings on those documents by other partners across the US. If you are a customer and you're trying to get help with a product, yes, you can use our ticketing system to ask a question and get a response. But what if a Liferay cloud service was actually monitoring your system performance, noticing that you were having some bottlenecks or a memory leak, and then proactively contacted you and said, you may want to consider taking these proactive steps to avoid your site going down. To sum up, I think the way that I would think about where we're moving as a company, yesterday's portals was like plumbing. You wanted to make sure you had the right integration into back-end systems. You wanted to make sure it was secure, it was reliable, and that the information in those systems was authoritative and consistent. Tomorrow's experiences need to work like magic, where if you've heard of Google Now, they're able to figure out that you've got a flight in 3 hours, and because BART's on strike and Uber is raising their prices, you'd better actually start thinking about how you're going to get to the airport now rather than an hour from now. And it's also important to note that the stuff on the left is not being replaced by the stuff on the right, but the stuff on the right is building on the foundation of integration, building on the foundation of the traditional enterprise portal, and then enhancing it with the user experience that people expect today. Another way to look at it is that we're going from the concept of my to me. In other words, we've thought about portals as a way to go in and say, I want to get my invoices, I want to pay my bills, I want to look up my account details, how many minutes I have remaining on my account. But if we think about it in terms of me, it means the portal is the single place where all of the interactions, all of the history of your relationship with that customer is going to be aggregated. It's going to be analyzed. It's going to be a place where you can find actionable information, where you're going to find a deeper and more comprehensive understanding of that customer and what they need than you've ever had before. So let's go back to our friend Rubinacci and see how this all fits together. So basically, all of you here, your company, you represent the services, the offerings that you want to give to your customers. And of course, Mr. Rubinacci's customer is your customer. And the technology really is just like a finely tailored suit that you can match exactly to the needs of that particular individual customer at any given time. So how do we get here? If this is the direction we want to go as an industry, as a company for Liferay for the next 5 years, how do we get there? So at this event, we wanted to officially announce that Liferay Portal 6.2 is being released, and we just want to share a little bit about what you can expect there. So Liferay Portal 6.2, we wanted to focus on how we can rethink portal technology to not just be about, again, access to information and systems of record, but to be a comprehensive platform for reaching the different audiences you have, your customers, your partners, your employees, your supply chain members, the public, across all of the different channels. So not just the desktop, but obviously mobile devices, as well as starting to put the foundation for, in the future, thinking about how we can reach them in person and phone channels. And then also engaging throughout the relationship. The people that are your prospects today are going to become your customers tomorrow, and then they're going to become advocates or evangelists for your brand. How are you actually engaging with them and giving them the appropriate information and the appropriate experience according to that life cycle stage? And to get a full overview of Liferay 6.2, I would encourage you to go to the roadmap session tomorrow with Edwin Cheung, our VP of Product, where he's going to go into this into a lot of detail. But because we have a mixed audience here, I actually wanted to really focus in on the mobile aspect. All of us know that in 2013, not having a mobile strategy is suicide. And we want to be the platform that supports your entry into the mobile space and engaging with your customers through this channel. So what have we done with 6.2? Let me just show you some of the highlights. One of the things is a completely revamped user interface. So Liferay 6.2 is really beautiful, really intuitive, and super modern. One of the things that you're going to see in the sessions over the next couple of days is how we've really rethought the user interface from the ground up. So from a technical perspective, what this means is that we've totally re-architected the CSS and the HTML and all of that underlying stuff. But for the business audience, this means that Liferay is going to be just a lot more easy to use and intuitive. And it's also just going to be easier on the eyes, a lot more obvious what the next steps are that you need to do. Another awesome thing that we've done in 6.2 is we've used Twitter Bootstrap, which is an industry kind of a de facto standard for doing themes and look and feel for web applications. So what this means is that it's going to be a lot easier for Liferay to fit the look and feel of your brand and your company so that you can actually focus not on editing HTML and CSS, but focusing on the user experience and the business value proposition. Responsive design. So one of the easiest ways to get into your mobile channels is to make your websites responsive. And this basically means that when you author new content, when you create new sites on Liferay Portal 6.2, it's going to be automatically responsive out of the box. And this is one example that I put together where I put an article from the New York Times into Liferay 6.2, didn't touch any code, just used the out-of-the-box web content management system, and you can see how the images and the text and everything resizes according to the screen size. And so we're going to support this throughout the product, and one of the ways that we help you do that is with mobile device previews. So anytime you're working on a page in Liferay 6.2, you're going to be able to, with one click, see how it's going to look on an iPad, an iPhone, or any mobile device that you configure for the one-click preview. Really beautiful stuff. I hope you'll be able to check it out in the sessions and in the demo booths. For the developers, we've also got a mobile SDK. So one of the things that we've thought about a lot at Liferay is, do you want to go completely responsive or do you want native apps? And we think that there's room for both. And then there's the middle, which is hybrid. But one of the things that we've invested a lot in is supporting mobile apps. We wanted to show you some of that with the demo James gave in the morning with me. But what our SDK is going to let you do is basically, when your teams are making new native apps, you can talk to Liferay, you can access Liferay services, you can access all of the things that you've already integrated into Liferay into your mobile apps as well. So that means that whether you're building tools for your employees or for your sales reps or for your customers, it's going to be a lot easier to get the right information in front of them at the right time. So beyond the technology, though, the other thing I want to share with you is that Liferay has really been thinking about how to change the way we think about technology. And that's really to become a company that engages. Part of what this means is that we're supporting different stages of the customer lifecycle with our technology. So you see, obviously, we're building our public website, liferay.com, on our technology, but we've also got a customer portal, and we've got our ticketing system, which is a custom application we built on Liferay. And this is all great and fine, but unless we've got the business units that support these technologies, it's just a portal. It's just another website. So what's become really important for us is to really have the teams that support our customers as they move through their relationship with Liferay. The other thing that we're trying to do is understand our customers. And I want to show you this because one thing I learned last night at our customer dinner was that this tractor is it's the Ferrari of tractors. I mean, if you're a farmer and you're meeting with your other farmer friends and you want to show off your wheels, this is the thing. This is called a Fendt. It's like the cream of the crop. And this is one of the products that one of our customers, AGCO, is offering to the market. And they're using Liferay to try to figure out how to better meet the needs of farmers who want tractors like this. I also wanted to give you a quick example from this other company that I encountered. And this is a thing on SlideShare. I posted a link to my Twitter about an hour ago, so you can find it there. But it was a slide deck we found called How to Manage Client Feedback for Designers. I found it interesting because I work a lot with our design team about our website, our marketing collateral, and I'm usually the bad guy in this situation. So I wanted to see what the designers were thinking. And it just starts off, it's very clever, it's very engaging. It says there's 3 types of feedback: negative feedback, positive feedback, and constructive feedback. And basically, you can check out the rest of the slide offline, but it goes on to say that how are you going to deal with this? So, well, one of the first steps is you should document the feedback. And about 3 slides into this section, they say, use tools. And one of the tools you might want to use is FrameBench, right? Well, it wasn't until I got to the end of the deck that I found out that FrameBench was actually the company that created this deck. Well, guess what? I loved the deck. I loved what they had to say. I immediately shared it with my marketing team, and now I've shared it in front of 350 people at the Liferay Symposium. So, they were not out there saying FrameBench is the leading platform for interactive feedback on visual designs. No, they said, hey, I know you have a problem. I know what that problem is. I've been there before. Let me tell you some of the things that we've done to solve that problem. And the tool is just one part of it. So one of the things that we want to do is say, hey, we don't care if you use Liferay ultimately. You can use whatever technology works best for you, but we want to be the leaders in how you actually do collaboration in an old school organization that's used to being very hierarchical. Or we want to show you how to do more engaging web presences in 2013, and that sort of thing. And if you believe that we know what we're talking about, then I hope that you'll also believe that the technology we built is infused with that kind of thought leadership. And finally, I just want to close with the main reason why we are all here. We've been talking about engagement. We've been talking about interactions and relationships. Well, it boils down to being in this room together. All of those terms are just fancy ways to say we want to have a relationship with you. We want to understand what makes you tick. We want to understand what your frustrations are so that you can leave this room tomorrow afternoon and go back to what you're trying to contribute back to the world as far as your products and services and do a better job at that. If you use Liferay to do that, great. But if there's something that we share with you in the next 2 days that helps you do that better regardless of the technology, then that's great as well. So I encourage you, we're going to be around. You can see our sales teams, our customer experience teams, our support teams are here. Strike up a conversation. Tell us what you need. Tell us how we can serve you better. And we're going to try to be as responsive as possible. Thank you very much.